Hey y'all, Miss Kennedy here from Algebra Student, and today we're looking at solving multi-step inequalities, and we're going to graph them. And yeah, they look kind of crazy, but we're going to make sense of it and make it a little bit simpler. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and then stick around to the end where I'm going to show you some extra little hints, hopefully to make this even more simple for you to get through this process. All right, so let's jump in. First things first is think of these like a regular equation. Like pretend for a moment, at least for the first couple of steps, that just says 167 equals, and then whatever else, don't worry about the less than at this point. That really doesn't have anything to do with the problem. It's not going to really change anything. So just go with it as if it said equals. So since that's the case, then the first thing we want to do is start with the distributive property. So I'm just going to bring down the 167 less than 6, and then I'm going to distribute here. So 7 times 2, that's 14. And then 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. And the negative 7 has an x on it, so the negative 49 gets an x on it. All right, let me erase this over to the side. And let's take a look. Now we're done we got rid of parentheses. Now we just need to see if we can clean up by combining some like terms. So on the left, there's nothing to do over here. And so we'll just bring all that down. But on the right side, think about what you can combine. You've got a 6 and a 14, and those are just numbers. So 14 plus 6 is 20, and you can bring down the negative 49x. Nothing to combine that with because there's no other variable in the problem. All right, why is it doing that? I got to figure out how to lock that in so that does not happen. I don't know. All right. So now we're ready to start actually solving it. So if this says 167 equals 20 minus 49x, then we would say, okay, well, the 20 needs to be over here. So I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. And we're going to do the same, even though it says less than. 20 minus 20 is 0. So 167 minus 20, that's 147. Bring down that less than sign. And then there's nothing over here except the negative 49x. Okay. So now if this said equals, then we would know we would just divide over here by whatever's in front of x. So we're going to divide by negative 49. 147 divided by nope, just one negative 49. All right, negative 3. Okay, so this is a negative 3. And here's the thing. We just divided by a negative, so that less than is going to change to greater than. That's one of the rules with inequalities. If you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality sign. Negative divided by negative is just 1, and that's x. Now, if we were solving, and this had been an equation, if there had been an equal sign, we would be done. It would just be negative 3 equals x, and we would be finished. But with inequalities, you have to finish solving by putting the x on the left side. So that means that everything has to flip around, and it means the inequality has to change again. So if I move the x from the right side to the left side, then I have to change that greater than back to a less than sign, and then the negative 3 comes over here. So that is the solution to this inequality, that x is less than a negative 3. So x could be a negative 4, or it could be a negative 3.2, or it could be negative 1,000,000. It's anything that's less than a negative 3. That's a solution to this problem. And then we have to actually graph it. And so, you're just going to have a basic little line graph. And I'm going to put negative 3 in the middle. And I got to think about my number line. On a number line, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 out here, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so that helps me to see what needs to be on the right side of this. I'm going to put a negative 2 and a negative 1. And then this will keep going the other direction, negative 4, negative 5. Okay, so let me erase my thinking that I did out here to try to make sure I had this in the right order. The lower, lesser number has to be on this side where it kind of looks like an L, and the bigger numbers have to be out here. But with negatives, that can be really confusing. And so it's less than, so it doesn't include -3. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. It doesn't include it, so that means I don't color in the circle. I leave it open, just an open circle at -3. And then everything that's to the left gets shaded. And one of the ways you can think of that is, you're going to shade the arrow that looks like this symbol. So this less than symbol looks like this one. It doesn't look like this one over here on the right. And so that's what you shade in. And that just gives you a visual picture. That's what your graph is doing. It's giving you a visual picture of where all the solutions are to this answer, that they're out here less than -3. All right. So thanks for sticking around to the end of that. Let me give you another one. And this one even looks even more complicated to me, just glancing at it for sure. So let's take a look here and see what we're going to do, what things are in common to the first one and what things are different. All right. So first things first is I would look for parentheses. I don't see anything there, so I'm just going to go ahead and start combining like terms. So like terms over here, I've got x's. So -8 plus 2, that's -6x. There's not any like terms to the -16, so I just bring it down, bring down that less than symbol, and then I've got a -5x and a +7x. So 7 minus 5 is 2. So there's my 2x. All right, I've combined all the like terms. Now I'm actually ready to solve. And solving means I need to move stuff around across the inequality here to get things together. So you have a couple of options. A lot of people are going to start, now don't write this down. A lot of people are going to start here. And this is where I see people miss it. And I don't want you to do that. Because you end up, you're like, well, 2 minus 2, I mean, you can do this, but most people miss it because this is what they mess up on. They'll say, okay, that's -8x, and that's -16, and suddenly they put the less than over here. That is not right at all. That's completely wrong. So how can I undo all that? Let's see if I can just hit the undo and only get rid of what I want to get rid of. Oh, okay, one too far. All right, so instead, what you want to do is, even though we know the x needs to end up on the left, go ahead and move it over here to the right side for now. That way, you're getting x's on one side in one step and numbers on the other side in one step. And I'm just going to bring the less than down. That inequality sign is not going to change. Less than doesn't change to greater than unless you divide by a negative, or at the very end, if x is on the right and you have to move it over to the left, then you'll change the sign, which you'll see in just a minute when we do that. Okay, so we have -16 is less than 8x. And now we're going to just solve like we would if it was -16 equals 8x. We know that we'd divide by 8 on both sides and get x is -2. That's our thinking for what we're doing here. So we're going to do the same thing. Now think about whether the sign changes or not, the inequality. We're only dividing by a positive, so the sign doesn't change. -16 divided by 8 is -2. It looks the same as it did over here, except we have our inequality sign. And now we would be done if it was inequality, but it's not. So we have to move the x over here to the left side, move the -2 to the right side, and this inequality has to change. Because this is saying -2 is less than x. Well, that's the same as saying x is bigger or greater than -2. So when you flip-flop it, you have to change the sign. All right, so now let's do our graph. Let's see if I can get rid of that quickly-ish. All right, line graph, and we're at -2. Okay, so most teachers are going to require you two numbers on either side. Some will just require one, but think through your number line. Think through, okay, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 would be here, -1, -2, -3. All right, so that helps me to see where my numbers go here. So if -2 is here, I know -1 and 0, -3, -4. Okay. I just know that lots of times students they'll get all this right and then they'll miss the graph. And I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to miss, what should be the simpler part, I suppose, of the problem. All right. So now it's greater than, and so it's open. If it was greater than or equal to, that's when we would close it in. That underline is like an extra step in my mind. And so I'm like, okay, I have to do the extra step of coloring in the circle. But greater than just means it's open because it's saying anything bigger than -2. So it doesn't include -2, but anything that's bigger than that is included. And so remember, if it's this symbol, that looks like this arrow. And so that tells me to graph on this side. All right, so those are the two parts of the answer. There's the solution and the graph. All right, I hope that helps. Y'all have a great day.